U.S. President Joe Biden is in Israel. The extraordinary wartime visit by the president to Tel Aviv demonstrates what the White House has called America's ironclad support for the country as Israel ups its offensive to eliminate the militant group Hamas from the Gaza Strip. President Biden's historic visit and arrival in wartime Tel Aviv is the first trip to Israel by an American president during a time of war. The visit made by Biden is one of the most complicated diplomatic trips of his presidency. This is a diplomatic scramble for President Biden to prevent the war from spiraling into an even larger conflict, a challenge that became more difficult as outrage swept through West Asia after a rocket missile explosion killed hundreds in the Al-Ahil hospital in the Gaza Strip.
In the wake of Hamas's appalling terrorist assault, it was brutal, inhumane, almost beyond belief what they did. This cabinet came together and standing strong, standing united, and I want you to know you're not alone. You are not alone.
President Biden says the United States would work with Israel to prevent civilian deaths as it pounds Gaza, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promising sincere efforts on this. Meanwhile, Netanyahu renewed charges that Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip and launched a deadly assault inside Israel on October 7th, deliberately puts civilians near targets in the hope of using them as shields.
We saw the cost of this terrible war crime yesterday when a rocket fired by a Palestinian terrorist misfired and landed on a Palestinian hospital. The entire world was rightfully outraged, but this outrage should be directed not in Israel, but at the terrorists.
Since the rocket attack on the hospital in Gaza, the Israeli military is blaming the terrorist group Palestinian Islamic Jihad for the hundreds of casualties. They say that Hamas misfired a rocket, but despite the accusations being made on them, Hamas militant groups have blamed the blast on Israeli airstrikes. A centerpiece of President Biden's visit to the region was to have been a trip to Jordan and a summit meeting with leaders of countries in the Middle East. As it is, Jordan canceled the summit after the explosion at the Al-Ahil Arab hospital. Jordan says the meetings would be held at a time when the parties could agree to end the war and the massacre against the Palestinians. Jordan's foreign minister has blamed Israel with its military campaign for pushing the region to what he called the brink of abyss. The Jordanian monarch has also spelled out that Israel's response following deadly cross-border attacks by Hamas on October 7th went beyond the right of self-defense to collective punishment of Palestinian civilians. Escalating tensions in West Asia put the spotlight on President Biden. There is anger among people over the bombing of the hospital. The American president has a huge challenge in front of him as he tries to stabilize the conflict in the region. And not to be forgotten, the world is witnessing another war in Europe where Russia is invading Ukraine. America is now heavily involved in both the wars. Washington has repeatedly stressed, however, that the U.S. can and will continue to back Israel and Ukraine at the same time. All right, for more on this, we are being joined by our correspondent, Sidon Sybil, from Ground Zero in Israel. Sidon, good to see you, and thanks for joining us. We heard that U.S. President Joe Biden said from the evidence and documents that Israel has provided to him, the attack on that hospital in Gaza was an attack by, quote unquote, the other team. What can you tell us about that?
Well, perhaps that is a significant and perhaps not only significant, the most biggest news point from the visit of the U.S. president to Tel Aviv. We all know that this is a solidarity visit, essentially, in which he is expected to say words of support for Israel. And he did say that. He talked about how people of the Israel are brave and how the American people are grieving alongside the Israeli people. Remember, many Americans also died during this terror attack by Hamas. But essentially, the fact that the U.S. president here in Tel Aviv said that it's because of the other team that the explosion in Gaza happened, showcases that how the American side is supporting the Israeli side. Now, essentially, the explosion in the Gaza hospital does shadows the visit of the US president, because essentially he was keen that the Americans play an important role diplomatically in diffusing the tension. He was expected to travel to Jordan and meet with the leaders of Egypt, Palestine and Jordan. Now that visit is cancelled in the aftermath of the explosion in the Gaza hospital, and the worry is that the Israel-Hamas war could spiral into wider crisis in West Asia.
Siddon, what is the mood on the ground where you are right now? What are people saying? What do they expect from the Netanyahu government? And are they, I don't want to say happy, but do they feel supported that President Joe Biden has come, or do they feel like it would hamper military operations and ground invasion and offensive into Gaza?
Well, Susan, I'm standing in a very high secured zone. This is a place where the US president is also staying during this very brief visit to this city. But essentially, there was an audio break, and something that we have seen in the past as well, given that the defense ministry is also located in this area. But what I can talk about is that when it comes to the situation on the ground, it's quite sensitive, precarious, and of course concerning as well. Today, fortunately, we haven't seen any rocket strikes on this very city. In the past, we have seen regularly rocket strikes, and of course these strikes being intercepted by the Iron Dome. But today we have seen a very quiet day, fortunately, for the people of this city. That's maybe because of the visit of the US president, and hopefully that will continue. But we know that the ongoing tensions remain, and anytime things can change very fast.
Yeah, that's so true. Siddon, stay safe out there. Thanks for talking to me. And I know that you'll be keeping us updated as we go through the day and with the latest. Thanks, Siddon.